What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the worst routes that wide receivers run, and then obviously the better way to run those routes. So we're going to be going through routes that we see commonly in one-on-ones with these examples here on the screen, and then we're going to show positive examples of these wide receivers making these like kind of crucial mistakes. So what we have here is a wide receiver who's going to be running like a 10 to 12 yard dig route, and we have a DB who's lined up inside shade press. So anytime we are trying to decide what route to run, how to run my route, the two things that we want to look for off the line, whether it's man coverage or even when it's zone coverage, is we want to pay attention to how close the DB is and then his specific leverage. So this DB is obviously in press coverage. He's right up on the line of scrimmage. There's maybe about a yard, half a yard of space between us, and he is inside shade. So when he's inside shade, he does not want us to run the slant, the dig, the post, anything inside breaking. He's trying to force us outside to his help, which is honestly the sideline, right? So now, especially with this wide receiver's lined up, he's on the bottom of the numbers. So if we just take off and go run to the outside, he's going to force us all the way to that sideline. Now, a lot of receivers are uncomfortable taking an outside release even when they have to run an inside breaking route. So that's the mistake that this wide receiver makes. He forces an inside release versus inside shade press. We can't exactly do that because that's this DB's whole like kind of MO. That's his whole goal. So let's watch what he does here. He tries to give like quick move to the outside, forces the inside release, DB reroutes him. And from the bottom of the numbers, guys, if your dig is ending up over the middle of the field and this DB's right on us, obviously causes a pass breakup here, that's not good. In a realistic game situation, like we need spacing. If I have to run a play, like let's say, for example, it's a dig from the outside, and then let's say we have another dig from the slot, and let's say your dig ends up all the way over the top of the slot. Even if you're open, that is horrible spacing because a linebacker over here could guard both routes. So how should he have actually ran this route? And we're going to show a positive example of this in a second. What he should have done is he should have threatened this DB's leverage to the inside. So he should have given him some type of jab fake to the inside to threaten that leverage. Because remember, when his leverage is inside shade, he literally does not want us to go there. So we want to make him think we're going there. We want to make him think we're forcing the inside release just to get him to move, because he doesn't have any help to the inside. And then we want to work to take the outside release. And when I work to take that outside release, I want to do one of two things. Either want to work to stack him, or if that DB's running right on my hip, I want to drop my hips and slip back underneath him. And that's what we're going to show in the second example here. But guys, we cannot force an inside release versus inside shade press. This DB's going to get hands on us, and when he gets hands, that disrupts timing with the quarterback. And when I'm trying to force something to his leverage when he has hands on me, all that does is make my route way too far to the inside, screws up spacing, and obviously screws up timing with the quarterback. Now, maybe there was a little bit of a jersey grab there, but even if there wasn't, guys, even if he was wide open and even if he caught the ball, I still don't deem this a realistic route. And that's why I can't stand when receivers do this when they have to run a dig or when they have to run a post versus inside shade press. So now let's look at this positive example here. We got a DB who's lined up closest press as you could probably get, like literally less than half a yard of space. Looks like he's going to get physical inside shade. This receiver does not force the inside release. He takes the outside release and takes what the DB gives him. He threatens his leverage, but this is how the route should be ran. Now, before we show this clip full speed, fellas, if you're a wide receiver watching this video or even a quarterback and you would like to train with us, we're going to be coming out to 7 more cities this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So we already have done 8 camps this offseason. Every single one of those camps has sold out, and our camp in Houston and Columbus are completely sold out, but we still have available spots in Newark, Birmingham, Boston, Boise, and Los Angeles. So guys, if you're local to one of those cities and you would like to train with us, go to that very first link in the description below. That is where you can sign up. Again, all the information is there. The locations of each one of those camps. Very easy for you guys to sign up. You just fill out your information, your position, your age, your t-shirt size, and you could sign up to train with us. So guys, go to that very first link in the description below. Again, that is where you can sign up. All of these camps, though, guys, will be sold out most likely by the end of this week. Boise and Los Angeles will probably take a little bit. We have a little bit more remaining spots there, but Newark, Birmingham, and Boston, guys, will be full by the end of this week. So make sure you take advantage of us having available spots. Go to that very first link in the description below. Again, we'd love to have you there. So let's get to this positive example here. So this receiver, watch what he does. Gives a little jab fake, maybe a little split release, takes the outside release, drops his hips, and then he's able to run this dig route. And you see, ball was thrown extremely late, but he's not even on the hash marks yet. That is how you have proper spacing on a dig route. So let's break this thing down, right? He's lined up at the exact same spot as the last receiver. He's actually lined up on the top of the numbers and still had more spacing than the last example, right? So he gives this move. This is called the split release, you guys, where both feet kind of split and you get wide. Not the greatest split release here, but he's able to take this outside release, right? Now, our goal in this position is always to try to stack the DB. Anytime we have press coverage, our goal is to always try to stack, which means this DB should be trailing directly behind me. And when he's trailing behind me, if I get to the depth of my dig route, which let's say is 12 yards, I could give him a fake outside. I could give him maybe some type of move. Now, everybody's biggest nightmare when they take the outside release on an inside breaking route is, what if I can't stack him? What if this DB is right next to me? He's right on my hips. You would drop your hips just like how this wide receiver does, lower your center of gravity, and slip back underneath him. I would recommend that this receiver should probably be running a little bit tighter to this DB, so this inside hand could go on the back of this DB's shoulder, back of his hip, and we could throw him by and slip back underneath just to help us with separation. But this is how you run the route. Now, it's very important when you're pushing vertical. Our goal is to get this DB to open up his hips, aka open up the gate. We want him thinking we are running a fade ball. And how we do that is by running with speed, running with the same type of strides. They don't need to be overly long strides, but your stride should be the same from the start of the route all the way into the break, and your body language needs to sell vertical. You see how he peeks back right here, like kind of like he's looking for the ball? That even sells fade more. You don't have to do that, but you can do that. And then obviously it's just a drop of his weight, right? This is called snapping down, where you drop to a 90-degree angle with your lower half, and you were trying to be as violent as possible, bring your chin to your knee, and that's what will stop you. But that's what stops you quickly. That's why you need to drop violently. And we're going to get into that with some other clips from these bad routes that receivers run. So this is textbook right here of how you would run a dig versus inside shade press. Remember, if we can't stack him, no problem. We still drop my hips because the goal is to keep timing and the goal is to keep spacing on my play concepts. So now let's watch another example here. So this is going to be a 12-yard stop route. Now, popular route that receivers love to run in one-on-ones, but you could think of this the same way as like a comeback, a curl, even this dig route that we were talking about, or even a 5-yard hitch. But let's watch what this receiver does. So he has inside shade press. He takes the outside release, which is good. You got to push vertical to 12 yards. And obviously all the way till 12, it should go without saying. We're trying to make the DB think that we are running a fade route. So he comes off the ball, gives a little move, and then he pushes up vertical. But I want you to pay attention to how slow his hips are at the top of the break. Guys, when we have a DB who's in man coverage, right, especially a disciplined DB, this DB's eyes are a little bit high, so I'm actually surprised that this receiver didn't get separation there. But a good disciplined DB, I'm not saying this DB's not good. He's obviously very, very good, but a very disciplined DB is going to have his eyes where? On our hips. And as soon as he sees my hips start to lower and feels me start to slow down, he's going to put the brakes on and start to slow down as well. So when he gets up into this break, you see how he has this kind of like slow drop of his hips. You see how like the first part to slow him down is more so his feet. He steps with his heels. That's what a lot of receivers like to do. They go up into a break and they step. Then they drop their hips. But the problem is that's slow. As soon as you start to slow yourself down, you need to be dropping your weight. That's a violent drop of your hips. That's like an abrupt drop of your hips. I call it like you're playing musical chairs. Music stops. What do? You sit in the chair as fast as you can. That's how you need to treat your brakes, you guys. That's how we stop ourselves. So you see how he steps really hard. He goes and he steps really hard, but that makes the process of his hips very, very slow. DB's able to slow down. He's able to make a play, doesn't even hold, and is able to get that pass breakup. So let's look at another route. Let's look at the exact same route versus the exact same coverage, but this receiver is able to get separation. Why is he able to do that? So he gives this move to the inside, gives a little stutter fake, drops his hips violently. Pay attention to how he's actually able to stop here. So let's rewind this. So he's going up into his break, and you see when he starts to make this break, it's not a heel-toe step. He's not stepping hard to slow down his speed. Then he drops his hips. When he's deciding to stop, it's because his center of gravity is dropping. The center of gravity changing is what's going to slow us down, especially when we're running hard. Both of these receivers did a good job selling vertical. Both of these receivers got that DB to believe that it was a 9 route over the top. But the stop, how these two guys are able to put the brakes on, is the difference. So when he breaks down, you see how it's a drop of his weight, right? And he doesn't even necessarily get as low as that first receiver. For taller wide receivers, it's way harder to drop low to that 90-degree angle and get to that position that's going to stop you. But when he drops, you see how he's sitting his butt down. He's dropping down as soon as he decides to make that like break. As soon as he's deciding to stop, he's changing his level. Chin goes to his knee. Another analogy that might help you guys is that you pretend there's a string attached to your chin and somebody is pulling the string straight down to your knee. And when you guys can do that, it's less time for the DB to react. He doesn't feel you start to slow down before you actually drop your hips to come back to the ball. You drop your hips to slow down. And that's when that DB is a step behind us. If you run a perfect route, DB can't guard it. There's no defense for a perfect route, just like there's no defense for a perfect throw. So that is exactly how you would run that stop route. So guys, you could apply this to a comeback, a curl, a 5-yard hitch. The hips got to slow you down, not necessarily your feet first. So now, next example here is how would you run a dig route? So same route in the very beginning, right? But it's a different coverage. This could also be a post route. This could also be used for like a curl route, anything inside breaking when you have off-man coverage. We spend a lot of time talking about press coverage, but a lot of times in one-on-ones, in real game scenarios, you won't always see press man. Sometimes you'll see off-man, especially if it's like, I guess you could say, like maybe like longer down in distance, if you will. So like they might play off-man and give the quarterback some pressure. So like, let's say it's like 3rd and 12 and we have to pass the ball, we have to move the ball, and we know you're going to be running a 12-yard route. We're going to bring pressure to the quarterback because he's trying to let the routes develop, and we're going to sit there and play off man because if you run a 5-yard hitch, we're just going to tackle you, and then it's going to be a short gain. You're not going to get the first down. So they'll be off, but you got to know how to run this route. So this receiver, he kind of does it right conceptually, but I don't like these types of moves when you're running a route because it's just, I feel like it's unnecessary. So he starts to attack the outside shoulder, but he does his little like stutter move, gives like this crossover, and DB's able to make a play. Right? I just feel like, number one, when you do this and you like kind of give this little hesitation mid-route, it is rare. Like, honestly, guys, it probably never happens where you see an NFL wide receiver in an actual game do that type of move. Like, it looks fancy. It looks cool. In one-on-ones and 7-on-7, maybe it's cool. Probably not even 7-on-7 because the quarterback has a timer. But in one-on-ones, it looks cool. You give this little stutter. Guys, it wastes time. And it really doesn't do much, right? So he does his little stutter, gives a little move, tries to give his crossover to threaten the DB's outside shoulder. He's all over it. He's not biting on it. Because honestly, guys, like there was really no threat of a fade. What we need to do is we need to attack his outside shoulder and outside hip and try to make him think that we were trying to take this really wide release. This receiver's lined up out of the slot. So I want him to sell like he's running a slot fade. So maybe he attacks him a little bit and then he pushes to his outside shoulder with some speed. That might get that DB to open up because there's a lot of ground that he needs to cover over here to the outside, especially out of the slot. But he comes up, gives a little stutter move, feel like it wastes a lot of time, and the DB just doesn't buy it. So let's look at this example here now. This is a live game example. Inside shade, off man, receiver has to run a 10-yard dig. So he's coming across in motion, but notice how he doesn't do this stupid stutter in between, and this dig is actually thrown really late. So he maybe could have had an argument to do this stutter because he's more of like a later read on the passing concept. What a lot of receivers don't understand is how passing concepts work. Like, let's say we have a play concept where we have like, this is just a random concept. I don't even know if this is a concept, but let's say it's 10-yard out, fade, and then you have like a backside dig. You might be the third read. So the quarterback's looking 1 to 2 and then back to you 3. So you might be able to take your time on it, but still you got to get up into the route and you have to do it conceptually correct. So what this receiver does is he's brought in motion and he pushes vertical at this DB's outside shoulder, outside hip, and the goal is to flip him, make him think we are going vertical, and then he cuts back underneath him. Notice how he doesn't stem him inside. He doesn't waste a bunch of time middle of the route. Guys, we can't do these things that only work in one-on-ones. When you're doing one-on-ones, and this is how we do things at our camps. At the end of our camps, we always do one-on-ones. And everything needs to be realistic. Everything needs to be how you would run it when you're going full pads, 11 on 11, and you're in an actual game scenario. So this receiver takes off. He's going right at the outside shoulder, puts the brakes on, and is able to slip underneath. And you see how late the ball is thrown, but he's still out of the route quickly, and he's still able to create separation. So, guys, these routes that you see receivers run, sometimes it might work, but you got to make sure that you keep things realistic because any drill work we do, any off-season training always needs to apply to this situation, which is a live game.